Here on the Business Brain Podcast, we'll improve the thinking skills that are getting in your way of doing what you want to do so you can work smarter, move faster, and grow your business with ease. Episode 500, you guys. That sounds crazy to say. It's crazy that we've got here, but we have. And the thank you goes to you, the listeners, for tuning in every week, because without listeners, is it even a podcast? So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for putting in your requests of what you want me to cover. Thank you for actually doing the exercises, because just tuning in, what's the point? It's about taking action and doing something about it. And I absolutely love when you share how those exercises have changed your life, how you've solved the root problem and not just put on a band-aid, and what it's done for you, your business, your personal relationships. I love hearing them. So continue sharing them. Just thank you for being here with me. And here's to another 500 episodes of us really growing together, optimizing our brains, and taking our businesses to the next level. For today's episode, we have something super different, super fun. I'm bringing in a client for you to actually see behind the scenes what happens. However, it's not just a client reflecting back as to what happened. There are 3 separate segments to this episode, and each segment was recorded a different time. One was recorded after the client has finished our signature program, Optimize Your ADHD Brain. She did a full 3 months of the program. It was actually even a few months after the program. And she shares her experience of the program and what it was like a few months after, like what actually stuck. We'll get to hear that first section of the recording, what happened. Then she joins an advanced program. And midway through that advanced program, we record section 2. In that call, I actually walk her through some of the challenges that she's having, and you get to see a glimpse of what happens during sessions. And then the third section is when she's finished that advanced program, and she shares if she achieved her goals of the advanced program and how that program has really helped her take her business even further. So let's dive right in. Remember, this was recorded a few months after she finished our signature program, Optimize Your ADHD Brain. I am so excited to speak with you, Julie. Thank you so much for being here with us. Do you want to start by taking a few seconds to just tell us a little bit about yourself and exactly what you do?
I am a facilitator and a coach. I have been in the nonprofit sector for the last 20 years. 7 years ago, I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur and serve the nonprofit community in a different way. I coach nonprofit leaders, and I actually coach the consultants that serve nonprofits. So I spend a lot of energy in this space of really empowering, particularly women, because it's a very female dominant field. The leadership in nonprofits in general is female, almost exclusively, and the education sector. And then also the consultants are predominantly female too. So I have just found a spot that I really like operating in helping these leaders know their value, get really clear on what's important to them, get clear in boundaries, all of that. So that's what I do.
I love that. Okay, so you've been in our core Optimize Your ADHD Brain. I think it was January core. So do you want to tell us why at that point you decided, like, okay, this is something that I need?
Absolutely. So I've been in business for 7 years. And you know how sometimes you zoom out and you're like, to not take this much energy to do what I'm doing. So I knew that I was wasting a lot of energy on spaces that I'm not good in, and then draining myself for the places that I am really good in. I think I fell into the same trap a lot of us do of, I'm just going to find the perfect system. I'm going to find the perfect hack. I'm going to find the perfect Well, I tried that for 7 years. And we got to know each other a little bit. And I realized, no, I want to go to the root here and interrupt what's happening with my instinct to go when I don't have all the facts, my instinct to build a bridge halfway. How many halfway bridges do I have built here? Let's just follow one all the way through, and let's step back and say, do these other ones even need to be built? And so I wanted to operate in a very different way than I had been operating previously.
And has that core Optimize Your Brain helped you accomplish that?
Absolutely. It's such an interesting thing because it permeates everything. I was just telling you before we started this that my husband and I went and did some dreaming over the weekend about a possibility that would be property, a career change for him, the whole deal. And what I realized is our conflict, I started using the term zooming in and zooming out with him. I've been wanting to tell you that it's influenced our relationship because we were zooming in and out at different points. So I'd be in the weeds being like, well, we could do this, 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 this. How could this work? And he'd be like zoomed out, like, is this really what we want? And I'd be so irritated because I'd be like, you wanted me to get on board and now I'm on board and now we're having this existential question. Like, and so I kept seeing that those abstract concepts that you teach are so helpful because I'm a very emotional person. And what I realized is I could see that we were doing this zooming in and out thing and we were like at different points in it. So I was able to use this term with him and be like, can we zoom out or I'm zoomed in? And it was really, really helpful. So that's just one very recent example of the Optimize Your Brain framework has helped me interrupt long rooted patterns. Him and I have been together for 25 years. It's helped me think about abstract concepts quite a bit, but I always think about him and I's relationship of, I'm trying to walk up this mountain and I keep twisting my ankle on the same spot. Can I just stop stepping in that hole? Like, how do I stop stepping in that hole? So the tools that I learned in Optimize Your Brain helped me pause and interrupt and really leverage my brain capacity again. It feels really good to be like, oh, hey, I'm actually smart. I'm not stupid. Seriously, but when your brain is trying to fix 12 things at once, it's exhausted. And when you start taking care of your brain, all of a sudden it starts working really well. And it's almost surreal to be like, I feel so there's a show, Prison Break, where this guy has this entire map tattooed on his body. No one knows it's a map except his crazy cellmate. And his cellmate's like, I see the path. That's how I feel. I feel like I am so much smarter now because I can see paths and patterns now that I couldn't see when I was so like caught in this cycle and trap. Those are just a couple of examples of how the work Optimize Your Brain cohort has really helped me.
I love how not only it helped all areas of your life, but also help the people around you, because he now knows what zoom in and zoom out is, and like you may never know, but like he might be using it with his coworkers.
Absolutely true. There is a ripple effect to it. The mindset book that we read at the beginning of the class was an eye-opener for me because I teach courage, shame, empowerment, all the things. And then I read this book and I was thinking we all have areas that were fixed, and that's exactly what the book was. But I didn't realize that I had a very fixed mindset around ADHD and my challenges. Just that alone, just realizing it's not fixed was so empowering.
Actually, a common thing that I see over and over again, especially entrepreneurs, a super growth mindset about like so many things, and they go through so many challenges because building a business is not easy, right? But when it comes to ADHD, it's fixed mindset. It's like
yes. Yes. What I didn't realize, so memory is a huge issue for me. And I didn't realize how much the memory was contributing to the anxiety. I was writing things down. So I actually joked at the beginning of the class because every time you would put us in a breakout room, you would give us instructions and I would write them all down. And it was like this intense fear that I'm going to forget something important, which feeds the beast. And so in our class, I had to step back and say, no, you're actually going to strengthen this thinking skill so you can trust your brain, trust yourself. Boy, you work a lot faster when you can hold two or more things in your brain. It's such a silly thing, but when I put in like codes and stuff, I'm always impressed with myself. I'm like, I can remember that, But before, legit, I couldn't remember anything. And I think it was just that anxiety was kind of, impacting my cognitive function. There's such a ripple effect to improving these cognitive functions.
You gave a really good example of how like emotions and cognition are two sides of the same coin. So no, we're going to do therapy work and we're not specifically working on emotions. Emotions automatically see improvement. I know soon we're starting a new cohort and we're going to get to that in a moment. But before we get to that, there was a couple of months where you haven't been in any program. And I want to know like that, like for you, and what actually stuck through this time, because a lot of people are really worried that like, hey, like they're going to finish this program and they forgot everything.
So for example, the zooming in, zooming out yesterday conversation, that stuff. And then I actually have a stack of cards of my life principles. There are some that I feel have been reinforced so dramatically in my life experience that they're kind of locked in, and the others I have to look at the life principles and reflect on them. One practice I put into place early on was how I input notes after a call, and I needed a place for them. So what I'm realizing is when I'm not organized and I don't have places for things, and this was a digital organization, but I wasn't clear on how to organize them. So I locked that in, I fixed it. Now I just run the system. And boy, it's like magic. Every time I get in a coaching call, I have all my reference points, all my coaching documents, everything's in one place in the dashboard. And the brain space that saves, not the time, the brain space that it saves is significant. So I have some practices like that I've already put in place. Like I'm still seeing the fruits of that labor from the cohort. It is a continuous build.
So
because
even though
start
you
to see-
haven't been in the cohort all these months, you've been actively working on it, there are things that are automatically building and happening. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Is there any other major difference you see from like before starting to work on your thinking skills to now that you think would be beneficial for listeners to know?
The categorization, that concept has been mind altering for me. That sometimes I had in one category that were in separate categories. And that has completely changed the way that I think and understand. I'm getting ready to navigate some team member changes in my organization. And I get to zoom out and really look at what people were doing in their seats and understand, and just even understanding that there's more than one way to categorize something was just mind blowing. We had a conversation about how long it takes me to prepare content every week for when I teach. I basically like redo it all every time. And I've taught this one course that I teach 25 times all the way through 24 hours. What am I doing? What am I doing? And you said something to the effect of, I was bucketing them. I was bucketing the tasks by the day. It's day 2 of an 8-week course. And you helped me zoom out and realize I was doing slides. I was doing content. I was doing all these things in the category of it's day 2 of an 8-week training. Instead of doing, I'm going to do all the slides for all the week. It's a way of shaking loose some of our unhelpful instincts and rethinking. So I do know that I have efficiencies in how I teach now as well.
I love that. And I love how you spoke about categorizations because that's what the next cohort's about. Oh, I'm so excited. We're about to start another cohort on comparisons and categorization that helps decision making, organizing, planning, prioritizing, organizing your day, internally, externally, all that sort of thing. What do you want to get out of this cohort? Why are you doing it?
So can I just speak again to the categorization? When I would get tripped on these things over and over and over, I would tell myself, you're an idiot, you're a failure, all the things. So it is really, there's a strong correlation between my self-perception now that I understand some of these things better and I can smooth the way better. And that's been a real gift of changing the label of you. I teach shame. So telling myself that there's something wrong with me, I'm broken, actually lowers my cognitive function as well. So there's so many beautiful interconnected things here that happen. So is there a specific thing I want to work on? I, on a personal level, have learned so much about what works and what doesn't work in my business, but I have not mastered consistency. The tenacity to stick through a strategy instead of run after the next shiny thing is important to me. I definitely want to apply it to my thinking around the team members I have in my business. At one point, I was saying it's like a soccer field. I have a lot of work and I can't do it all. I keep kicking the ball across the field and there's not actually anyone there to receive it. They would like to be helpful, but they're not standing in the right side of the field. They had no idea which way I was going to kick that ball. And I've since kind of changed it to, I'm not sure I had the right people on the field in the first place. So when I started finding different people who actually could catch that ball over there, I was like, oh wait, maybe it's a combination. So how I think about empowering people to work with me is a big piece of what I want to get out of this next cohort. How I think about tasks and the drain of the task and the rhythm of my week and efficiencies, that's something that's really important to me.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I caught 3 main things in everything you just said. 1 is consistency. 2 is the empowerment of others and leading your team is how I see it, right? In a way that they can do their best work and really support you to do your best work. You're like the center of this whole thing.
Yeah.
And then number 3, making sure you're doing and arranging tasks, scheduling things in a way that's most efficient, most effective. You get the most done for the amount that you put in. You feel more energized instead of drained by the end of your the end of your week or whenever it is, really every day.
Funny, because I know like all the tells of people who don't have good thinking skills now that I've been on with you. So now I'm like, wait a minute, you didn't bottom line that enough. But yes, that was very effective. Good job.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it is. If I have to say a downside to learning about cognitive functions, that's what it is.
You're like hyper aware. Yes, that's
Yeah.
hilarious.
Well, I actually see it like an opportunity, right? Like, as then you're more understanding the reason why they're not trying to be mean to you, but it's because they have those weak thinking skills. So when we can flip that a little bit and be like, okay, they're not doing this purposely, but they have weak cognitive functions, then we can know where to go from there and talk to them in that right sort of way.
To that empathy piece, I'm not going to tell my kids weak cognitive function, but I could literally, when we had this big dream, and it was an emotional moment to think that big and dream that big. And then we would zoom into, how are we going to get cash together? How are we going to get the investor? How are we going to pull this off? And we would keep doing these zoom in, zoom out. And at one point I'm sitting there watching him and I'm like, I almost feel like I can see his brain trying to compute. And he said something that's so interesting to me. He said, I haven't caught up to you yet. And I was like, you know what? Because our brains do work differently. He's a verbal processor and I am not. So if you ask me to sit through your processing that has not been vetted yet, it's painful. It's interesting, and it does help empathy, I think, for other people. Realize we're just processing differently at different speeds and different ways, and understanding, at least in this relationship, that it's not that he doesn't want to be on the same page with me. Just that he's not.
Yeah, and that's actually very helpful. Going back to the second thing you spoke about, like with your empowering your team members, because if you know they have different strong, weak cognitive functions, you can use it to your advantage, right? You can either talk to them in that way, leverage their strong cognitive functions to help you in areas of your business, and even help them improve their weaker ones.
Absolutely. That's important to me.
Amazing. Is there anything else, like when you look back at yourself now, like 3 months time, you're like, okay, I really want to have made sure that I put in the effort. Maybe this is not perfect, but I've done the work to get this a little bit of a better place.
The categorization. I am on the cusp of understanding the difference between a project, and you don't specifically cover this, but for me, in my thinking skills, understanding I was trying to push through like 12 projects at once. I wasn't prioritizing them. And then routine tasks. And even just understanding that these are separate things is new to me. So in 3 months' time, I would really love to have it out of my brain, not as a hack, but as a wellness strategy where I know where I am. I've prioritized the projects that have to get done in the next quarter, and I've got the right people in the right seats doing the things that are going to help move that forward. But refinement of getting that external would be great. And I think that the work we're doing together will help me to understand how to do that.
Yeah, I love how you said that, because I feel sometimes like we understand the cognitive function on one level, like mentally it makes sense, but it takes a little bit of time for really the gear to really like click into place. It all of a sudden like everything falls into place, and like you see this and that and how that's working, and categorizing all of it and like adjusting your tasks, and you're like, I was working that really stupidly, right? Like things like that. It will happen, especially if you're going to be focusing on this cognitive function. But you've also mentioned something else really important. We are not going to spend any time working on consistency or leadership or energy of tasks, right? We're working on improving your cognitive functions. And as a result, automatically, everything else will fall into place. Whatever else you didn't even think about that you want to improve, but as long as it's related to the cognitive functions of comparisons and categorization, you'll see improvement.
How was that? Connecting with Julie? Feeling like, yeah, some of this stuff is me. So ADHD, right? Anyways, let's go into part two. Part two, you get to go even deeper and get to really, really see behind the scenes. You get to see how the work that we do in session connects directly to your business and your life. Let's go.
Comparisons is a very interesting thinking skill because we do it from a very young age. In school, we're asked to compare things, even ask a 4-year-old, compare these two items, right? Yet for some reason, we never like learned the right way to compare, or like how to compare in a way that's helpful to us or in this situation.
For me, it's like a secret underlying skill that helps everything else.
Such a good way to put it, because I like to think of it as like, I can teach you decision making.
Yeah.
I could teach you organization. I can teach you SOP building. I can teach you communication, right? All those things are individual skills, or we could learn like those secret skills that you're using without you even realizing it. Your brain's just doing it. And it's like you get that stronger, then everything else related to comparisons gets stronger. And decision making is like high on the list, that gets better. How have you found your decision making different since improving comparisons?
There is a cycle you go through in learning skills. And I think the first one is unconscious incompetence, where you don't realize that you don't have the skill and you're perfectly happy with it. Then there's the conscious incompetence where you're like, damn, I'm really bad at that. I'll be honest, I still think I'm there. But what it's doing is it's making the invisible visible. So I know that I have systems for delegation in my business. I have systems for organizing my time. And all of a sudden, I'm able to zoom out and say, wait a minute, how am I categorizing the task? And is that right? The right priority? So all of a sudden, I have new language and new ways of thinking that I didn't have before, but I'm still very much trying to grapple and grasp with it. So I can see it. I know it's there. Some recent ways that it's shown up for me is decision making. On paper, I could say, I actually share this in class. I can say that I should go to the conference I'm going to this week because it's a networking opportunity for me. It's a community I've been part of for years. However, when I layer in the variable or the parameter of like my commitments to my family, the fact that it was over Halloween, the fact that I still have someone at home that wants to participate in the holiday, I realize those other parameters don't actually matter. If I allow what's most important to me to show up in my decision making and be considered, then I have a lot more peace in my decision.
What I'm hearing is a calmness, like you made a decision and it's not like overthinking. Did I make this decision right? It's like I made this decision and I'm confident that this is a good decision.
Because I know the variable, the parameter that I'm choosing to make it on is a pretty black and white one. Does this align or doesn't it? It doesn't. So before I would be like, but look at all these variables, look at all these things. It's really freeing to not have to look at every single variable and just look at the one that's most important. If it's a no-go, I don't have to analyze the rest of it.
Can you tie this back for people who are confused and how this is related to comparisons?
So in comparisons, we need to know what all the parameters are that we're comparing. And we need to make sure that we're comparing apples to apples on each parameter.
This just makes me so happy to hear. Okay, I need to interrupt you for a second. You're explaining this so well. Okay.
Are you proud of me? Okay, good.
Yeah.
Words of affirmation we just discussed are my love language. So thank you for being proud of me. So in decision making, we need to know what the parameters are that we are considering, and we need to make sure we're considering like items. So if I'm making the decision for my business based on the ability to generate leads for my business, that's one variable. So go on down the list. However, the beautiful thing is that we get to prioritize those parameters. For me, being present during this holiday for my son became a very important parameter, which then meant I didn't have to deeply analyze the other ones.
Beautiful.
One area that we've talked about in our coaching is how I organize my time and my tasks. I think comparisons was coming up here where I was organizing my time by client instead of by task. And so understanding that that's how I was organizing my time and choosing to do it by task instead of by client changed the efficiency in my business as well.
So I'm glad you brought that up. It's actually highly related to categorizations, the next thinking skill that we're working on. But in order to do categorizations, we need comparisons. So there's most definitely comparisons in there, but the bigger, bolder, louder thinking skill in there is categorizations. So you've already done this in one area, actually multiple areas, just knowing a little bit more what's happening in your business. And I can't wait for, as we go through categorizations, to see it spread to like areas. I have another question for you, like on comparisons in general. How are you feeling about it personally in the beginning before you started versus how you're feeling about it now?
In the conscious incompetence, starting to lead into the competence area on this, I realized early on in the categorizations workshop that I have a habit of starting a strategy, and we would go down the page and flipping my strategy. I'd do it one way for a while, and then I would switch and start doing it another way. And I was not even conscious that that was happening And once I saw it, that's probably one of the biggest things I've taken out of this so far is holy cow, I didn't realize I was even doing it. So it was really simple in the exercise that we do to see I had done it. It's not nearly that simple to see it when it's playing out in my business or in my personal life. So I have some awareness that I didn't have before on that tendency to kind of switch the strategy halfway through an execution. So it is tied to comparison, but in such a weird, subtle way that I wouldn't ever name that as being an outcome.
That's one of the beauties of the exercises. They're created, these special sheets and the special brain exercises that are created to pull these things out of people. And what you got out of it will be different than what other people pulled out of the core, as you know.
It is really hard to interrupt patterns. The first step is awareness to them. And I definitely think when it came into the first cohort at the beginning of the year, I was tired. The story I describe is you walk in the same path, you're going up a mountain and you twist your ankle the same exact spot every time. It's like, why don't I just prevent that? Why don't I stop it? For me, the ankle twisting is happening when I'm wearing down and switching strategies halfway through. I'm seeing the awareness, I'm seeing it happen, and I'm circling back and catching it and keeping it going. I'm trying to think of a clean example of where I've seen that through to the end.
We can walk through this together. For every challenge, every challenging situation that we're in, we need two solutions. We need a short-term solution for right now. Like if you need to get through your tax, you need to find a way to figure out how to get all the information right now because sorry, IRS is not waiting, right? That's one. For long term, we want to solve the root cause so that way this doesn't show up in other areas, right? This is on a smaller scale of right now, you need to get a LinkedIn post right now. What am I doing to actually sit down, write something, and being able to get something out? But for the long term, why is this a challenge? How can I make it easier? So what is something that you're like, okay, I'm finding myself switching strategies midway through. I'm finding myself messing things up. I'm finding myself, like you said, twisting my ankle way too many times over and over again in this situation. It could be a small example. It could be a big example, whatever you want.
This is tricky just because of where I'm at right now. You can know something's working and not feel it. And so where I'm still struggling is trying to hand things off so I can do the things only I can do and hand them off in a way that's efficient and effective and still gets the results we want. And the ankle that I keep twisting is not handing it off well or rushing. And I am catching that where I'm assigning things out to people and I don't want to take the extra step of looking it up, putting it in the task management system, doing the steps to set them up for success. That's one example where it's still a work in progress.
Beautiful. Okay, so let's start with our short-term strategy. What is the short-term strategy for this specific solution to help you get better at delegating and getting over your tasks today?
I'll tell you what I do. I get tired if I'm not able to communicate well, and then I abandon the strategy I'm trying, for example, the task management system, and I just go back to sending it an email with a Google Doc. That's the short-term strategy. Something's not happening on the receiving end. People aren't saying what they're supposed to do. They're not understanding. So I'm like, here, I'll put in an email for now.
1 second, I'm going to interrupt you. What you just said right now is how you're currently coping. But it's not a strategy. If I told you, I know you're really tired, I know you're really fatigued, which we're going to solve with our long-term strategy as to why you're really tired and really fatigued. But if you need to put it in your task management, how are you going to get yourself to sit down for those 10 minutes to put it in? Is it putting on a really good song? Is it beating yourself against the timer? It's not something really complex. It's something to literally almost force yourself, in quotes, to sit down and just do thing that you need to do.
I think is actually one I've started putting in place is I need to take things off the list. That is a short-term strategy. I'm trying to move too many things forward at once, and then you move nothing forward. So in order to protect those few things that I said are my priorities for 2025, anything that no longer aligns with those, I have to release. For example, free workshops that I'm hosting and collaborating, they're all good things. But when I don't have enough bandwidth to effectively delegate tasks, I can't take extra things on. So a short-term strategy, it's not as short-term as using music and jamming out, but it's let's lessen the plate so you can better deliver what's on it. Let's decide what's critical and what's not. So comparison, let's decide what's critical and what's not critical, so you can get an air full of lungs or a lung full of air and really be effective at a few things, not a bunch of things. So I will say that even just in the last weekend, I sat down and made some decisions about the rest of 2024 and 2025 of what I needed to release so that I could better manage the things that are most important.
That is awesome. That is awesome. I'm so happy you did that, but it is not getting the information that you need into the task management. So
No,
what
it's
can you
not.
do? I know you don't do it yet. What can you do when next week you're at the end of a really long day and there's something that you need to delegate and you're like, okay, it's just way easier to put in the email. How are you going to tie yourself to the chair to be able to do it?
Interesting, because my resistance to using the task management is because of weak thinking skills. It's because I
Yup,
don't know
that's
where to
long.
find things.
Okay,
I don't know
long-term
which
strategy. We're
bucket
gonna
it
get that
goes
in a
into.
minute. I'm so happy. Okay, we're gonna get that in a second. 1 second.
When you're happy, it's almost guaranteed that I am not happy in that moment.
Best line ever. Okay, but tell me, Julie, what are you going to do? Answer this question. You don't do this yet. We're going to do this starting from now on. How are you going to make it fun or make it possible or make it no other choice that you're going to put it in the task management? Girl, I promise you the task management is going to get easier as soon as we have a long-term strategy. But long-term strategy is called long-term for a reason. It doesn't happen tomorrow. And you have to stop sending emails because it is going to be messing you up.
Yeah, it does.
Are you
It does.
going?
Then I have people responding to an email and not updating the task management. I'm sabotaging the system. Absolutely.
Yes.
So what's stopping me from using the task
Not what's
management
stopping you. No,
system?
no, we're getting to that in a second. We're getting to that in a second. What are you going to do as a short-term strategy to put it in?
I think it's just interrupt the instinct to email it. And, you know, this 5-second rule, or not 5-second rule, 5-minute rule, I think it's getting things done is if you can do it in 5 minutes or less, just do it. Just forcing myself to put it in the task management system. As it happens, one of the techniques that I use now for coaching, I mentioned on a different call that we were on, I used to have piles of coaching notes. I don't anymore because I will not get up after a call for a drink, for a bathroom break, unless I've inputted my coaching notes. And so it's the same thing. It's if I have a task I want to delegate, I have to take the extra 24 minutes to get it in the system. Again, it's the fatigue. I want to be like, oh, I'll just dump it in there and I'll categorize it later. But I got to take that extra beat to put it in the right bucket and assign it to the right person and make those decisions when I'm thinking about it instead of kick those decisions down the road. That's the instinct I've got to interrupt.
Beautiful. Okay. I want to add to that as you're getting up from it and you're like, okay, you just finished it, give yourself a high five or a hug. And then it doesn't take extra time because you're already really tired and you don't need to do something else, but just to like reinforce the fact that like, yes, I did do this, even though I really don't want to. That way it becomes easier. That brings us to our long-term strategy, right? You tell me everything about this. Cognitive functions related to it, the strategies related to it, all of it. What's on your brain?
The long-term strategy is knowing where the information goes.
So that's the problem. 1 second, just to clarify. The challenge is what? Why is this task very fatiguing for you?
Because of the amount of decision making that goes into it. Because I don't quite know where to put it, and I don't quite trust the system to hold it because I don't maintain the system. So it's until you're dedicated to your systems, then you can trust them. So the fatigue comes from, what project is this part of? Is this tied to a client? Is this tied to an activity? Is this that not having that completely fleshed out yet then means that there's more opportunity for it to not get done or not get done efficiently because it's not tied to the right project or the right information, or because I'll send like 3 emails in a row around the same task because I think and that's very inefficient. It's not fair to my team.
Okay.
So you're gonna have to prompt me through this. Okay.
Yes,
so the problem
we're gonna work through this. This is what we actually want to work through because that way it's gonna be no longer an issue, and not just with this, but with everything. So correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand,
with everything, I'm so excited.
Yes. So the reason why, like I said, correct me if I'm wrong. But the reason why this task is very fatiguing is because there's a lot of information with a lot of decisions and having to get clear on what is going where and deciding what goes where.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now let's put this on pause for a second and think of something else that you find yourself task switching from, or like strategy switching from, I should say, and it's also very fatiguing. Can you think of something?
Finances.
Okay. Why do you find yourself doing that?
It's interesting with finances because I do actually know what to do. So I have a system that I'm following. I've made a commitment to that system. It's proven to work. I trust people that use it. And I don't know if there's a little bit of like boredom that's happening, halfway through where I'm like, maybe I'd really rather it be like this instead. Where when to change a system that I've already made the decision is what I want to use. I don't quite know why I resist to being consistent in how I'm tracking, managing information around finances.
If you know the system works, what's your brain thinking? Like, what's the thought process going through your brain by like, actually, I'm going to do it this way instead?
I'm not getting any reward out of this process. So the data is not immediately helping me make decisions. So right now, it's more of a discipline that doesn't have immediate reward to it.
1 second, but how does that relate to switching strategies? Just to clarify, to make sure that we're on the same page, you have a way of putting in information and you're deciding that like, actually, I want to put in information a different way.
Yeah, it's embarrassing to admit, but I think it's just coming back to like a little bit of rebellion of, I don't want to keep doing this. It's ridiculous, but I'm not getting that immediate boost of motivation from seeing the numbers. I'm a little scared to see the numbers. I'm a little scared of what they're going to tell me. So let's not look at it.
So what I'm hearing is, based on these numbers, I'm going to need to make decisions. And I don't know what I'm going to be able to make with those decisions. I don't know what I'm going to be able to be doing. I don't know where I'm going to use this information actually afterwards. And so even though on the first step of this task, I know what to do, the second step of this task, my brain already is jumping ahead because you're a smart woman and it knows what's happening afterwards. And so it's like, now we'll miss it before we even get there.
Unbelievable. That's so true. It's so true.
And so
I have yet to get to that point of empowerment where I feel really good about using the data to make decisions. I'm in that sort of gathering grind stage of getting it all together, which is a necessary stage.
As we very clearly see here, the pattern is that as soon as there's a decision, whether it's a small one, whether it's a big one, because your brain is not 1,000% comfortable yet with making decisions, it is going to find a way to switch a strategy whenever there's some sort of decision that needs to be made. And that ties exactly back to what we started this conversation in the beginning with the comparisons. As we said, how comparisons is directly related to the decisions. You did mention you're now aware of the problem, but it's not yet something that happens naturally and something that happens just by itself. Do you think that as you get better and making decisions and it's something that happens in your sleep and you don't have to think about it, that these other things will be a little bit easier?
I do. The thing is that, what I like about your program is you don't teach a system. You teach the thinking so we can build our own systems. The fact of the matter is I will probably have to modify a few things about how we store things. But yeah, as I continue to force myself to put things in the right place, and if a right place doesn't exist, create the right place, then the future tasks will become easier and the decisions will become easier.
I want to create a strategy for you right now, a long-term strategy of whenever there's some strategy for you to help yourself whenever you need to make decisions. So obviously we're proving comparisons and decisions is going to be easier. But what is like a strategy, just like all the other strategies we mentioned in the past, process elimination, if and then, stop on things, systematic search, a new strategy that you can use or implement in this moment when you need to make a decision? Like, it's a strategy that if you had to put the information in a task management that you can actually use.
When we were in the first cohort, I had one that was close the loop and just don't leave loops open. So insurance renewal, it comes through. I want to do some comparisons. I know there's some additional information I want to gather. I also know I got to get on the call in 10 minutes. If I could close the loop with that information, get it out of my email so I don't re-look at it 6 more times, put it in the right bucket with a series of tasks that are related to it, I can get it out of my brain quicker.
Beautiful.
So,
Closing the loop is a Fabulous strategy. I love it. It's a little bit of a big one though. Is there a little minor one that you could implement, like to make it easier for almost like a strategy to close the loop?
Yeah. One thing that I'm realizing is a short-term strategy is honestly snooze, and having certain times of the week that I can do this, inputting when I'm going to actually take the extra time to put it in the correct area and tie the correct task to it. So that is it's not a strategy I wrote down in our class, but it's just a way of making sure that I know it'll resurface in 3 days or 1 week at a time where I can actually put it correctly into the task management system.
No, I love that strategy so much is because that was the strategy that like saved me 20 hours a week by not doing everything now, but rather by batching things together. And so I made a conscious effort to purposely not do something now because it is sometimes better to do it in the future. And when you just sit down there and put in 10 tasks in the task management instead of every time putting just one, you save a hell out of time. So what are you going to, I personally call that strategy batching because it's how my brain works, but I want you to give it a name for your brain. How do you call it when something like this comes up? How are you going to call that?
I think batching is a correct label. And for me, it's twofold. It's having gaps or blocks in my schedule for this type of work. And then that's where I put the music on, go sit outside, whatever, to kind of do some mundane work. It's that mechanism right away of, do I sort it into a folder or do I snooze it? For me, snoozing is actually more effective than putting it in a folder because I know it'll pop back up into my inbox. And snoozing everything till Thursday when I do some of my business admin, it feels like a reasonable strategy.
Now, if there's something an emergency that you need to send to someone today, you're not sending them in an email. Right. You are sitting down and you're putting it in a task. If it can wait till Thursday, you're hitting the snooze and you're waiting till Thursday.
Yep. And what that does is ensure that I don't keep sabotaging the task management system.
Beautiful. And this doesn't just apply to the tasks, and this doesn't just apply to finances. Can you bridge this to one more place for us where you need to make decisions and you need to decide, like, are we doing this now or are we working on this? Are we going to work on this in the future?
Manage tasks in my personal life as well. And that instinct to just ignore it and not process it is strong at times and really, really ineffective. So I can see where the application of this strategy would be helpful around personal tasks too.
Beautiful. Can you wrap us up with a life principle based on what we've discussed today?
When I receive information that needs to be acted on, I'm going to put it in the task management system.
1 second. That's getting very specific. Make it a life principle for everything.
When I receive information I'm going to need to act on, I'm going to capture it or batch it. I know it's still specific, but capture is do it, batch it is schedule it to be done.
So capture is like do it all the way, close the loop, like do it completely. And schedule it, batching it. I want to sit down and just batch out a whole bunch of this at once.
But both of them make sure that it's going to be addressed correctly.
Both of them make sure they're going to be addressed correctly. Both of them, what I also like about it is that it's discussing two types of challenges that we might find ourselves in, right? Like some things need to happen right now and some things can wait in the future. And you cover those both in your life principle, and your life principle is general enough that apply to so many areas of life. And what I'm even more excited about is comparisons will help you with making the decisions, and the categorizations is going to help you with the batching part of it. I can't wait for when we do our third call of this to be able to say okay, so how's it actually going now?
I can't either. I cannot wait.
Were you able to follow the questioning I did with Julie and apply it to your own life? If not, go back and listen to part 2, because in part 3, Julie has completed Optimizer ADHD Brain Advanced. We walk through those 5 goals that Julie set before she started this cohort, and we see if she actually accomplished them. What happened, what changed, where her business looks like today. It's fun because you get to see the after.
What I want to do today is go through your 5 goals that you set in the beginning of this cohort and just tell us if you've accomplished them, if you're still working on them, if you decided to drop them, what happened.
Absolutely. So interestingly, the cohort covered a big period of holidays and time where we kind of lose one of our natural cycles and rhythms. So for me, I really, over the course of the entire year that I've worked with you, I have had some really big shifts in how I do my coaching with clients and how I launch them and how I capture the information. And so if you look at my desk today, it looks radically different than it did a year ago because I don't jump from call to call without closing out calls. And I know exactly what I'm capturing every time I close it out. And I know exactly where I'm capturing it. And it seems like such a simple thing, but I didn't realize until actually one of the exercises in the most recent cohort how often I switched strategies and how often I halfway build something without thinking it all the way through, forget, rebuild, forget, rebuild. So I think what consistency is looking like now is I understand why I built the capture system that I built. I understand why I'm collecting the information that I'm collecting. And there's just a motivation built in with that understanding that allows me to keep the system going. I can see that consistency showing up in how I start my days, how I organize my weeks, what calls I take when, how I launch a call. Like I'm really clear on parts of the whole and I'm getting consistent about parts of the whole. So that workflow, I guess, that process in the business is where I'm seeing the most of it. I'm also seeing it personally, like how I start my day, getting up at the same time every day and knowing that I have these anchors in the day that will start and finish my day. And that used to be something that I would renegotiate almost every week. And I don't anymore. And it's very freeing.
Sounds like you're way calmer about it.
Yeah, for sure.
Your tone of voice is like, this is a place in my life that is better than was a year ago.
And it's a combination of understanding the component, understanding, the components of the day, the types of the days, and where I want to spend my energy.
Amazing. Any specific strategy or just something that happened in life that you're like, okay, this is a component that really helped? Like you said, one of it was understanding, but besides for that, anything else that really like helped you with it or is going to help you moving forward?
So we talked at length in the cohort about an experience I had in an airport, and it has turned into one of my frameworks for understanding that I've carried forward. Airports have created a lot of anxiety for me in the past, and I didn't actually have a fundamental understanding of the stages you move through within an airport because I don't travel often. So we used it as an exercise, and we identified the phases that you move through that, once you're inside the airport, you're done with this, you're done with that. And that way of thinking really, really helps me with anxiety. It really, really helps me with overwhelm, to where when I know where I am in a phase, and just like the airport was such a visual representation of the phase, but when I know where I am in the phase or the ecosystem or whatever it is, I only have to deal with what's in that layer. I only have to get through security. And then once I get through, like I know what's involved in this layered level, whatever you want to call it. And I feel like that understanding has been really empowering, and it's brought a lot of peace, because when your brain wants to jumble it all together and then you think you have to fix it all together, you can never get past go. I was still trying to understand like how to get on the plane, but I didn't even understand what gate to go to or what door to go to or where to get dropped off of. And so I guess for me, that framework of really understanding the layers that you have to pass through to get from the beginning to the end of any process was really helpful.
Love the airport example so much because it's so concrete and it's like really easy. Like if you didn't get past through security, then like you can't buy anything in duty free. Like you can't get to your gate. Like right. And in business and in life, like we have that so much, and like we stress about like steps 4, 5, 6 when like we need to get to step 1. We need to get to the right door, to the right terminal, right? And then like we could think about what we have moving forward.
If you made it this far, I have a surprise for you. It's a bonus episode that I never thought I'd share publicly. Kind of like the secret story of my life. Just DM me the word secret and I'll send it right to you for free. So you can DM me on Instagram at LifePeaks University, LinkedIn, or even send me an email, hello@LifePeaksUniversity, and I'll send it right to you. Just do me a favor, don't tell anyone else.
Amazing. Okay. How about your goal on empowering and leading third?
A couple things have come into play. Some really related to the cohort, some not as much. The go slow, go fast. When I look at 2025, I experimented a lot with team members that had, valuable attributes, but needed direction. And it was just so much of the handover, explain, like figure out what they have to do, give it to them, and then go back to my lane. And I was just spending too much time in the wrong lane, and I didn't have the right people around me to hold it and own it for a variety of reasons. And so what I'm seeing this year is, one, that was a learning experience. So I'm trying not to, as a business owner, I'm trying not to say, I wish I wouldn't have spent that money in that way. With all this sort of fractional support that I got, I could have hired a pretty high-end, expensive contractor. So the piecemeal approach didn't work for me. And I think the faulty thinking for me as a business owner was I should figure all the parts out and then delegate it all out. No, I don't want to do that anymore. So empowering and leading others, it's been an evolution of building a team where I started with that sort of micromanaging. Here's what I want you to do. Here's the task. Here's the task. Here's the task. And I ended with, here's what I want you to own. What do you need from me? And it's amazing.
I love that. Let's move on to goal number 3, organizing tasks in an efficient and productive manner. I spoke about this a little bit just before, but let's get a little bit more specific in like the tasks part.
Actually, it came up today. I am in the new database re-tagging people because we were sometimes calling them community, sometimes calling them former participants. Like we were inconsistent how we were labeling. So with my team, we sat down and we said, okay, what's the criteria for each category?
I love that. I'm going to interrupt you on that for a second. The labeling and defining those labels is literally the thinking skill of labeling. So that's awesome, which makes it much easier for us to afterwards categorize. But probably I just took those words out of your mouth. So go back and say what you want.
So in this database, we had inherited a framework. And then we had migrated our own data over that had its own fields that weren't in the inherited database. So we had duplicate fields. We had all kinds of stuff happening. And it wasn't until this morning that I realized, okay, status of, a lead that I want to follow up with, or someone who's already working with me, or someone who's previously, like, that status is separate from something else. And in my brain, they were together. So we had to distinctly separate them. So we did that. We had that conversation. We clearly said, okay, here's why you're so confused. Like, let's separate this out and then let's make it our own. And so I did that work and I started updating the records. And what I did that was different this time is, instead of leaving that tab and going and finding out the email chain, when did they email me? Going into that, I would just tag my assistant, check LinkedIn, check my email, and I kept going. And the reason I did that is because I'm the only one that can prioritize action for these people. I can do the rough sort. Someone else can do some of the fill-in data. And that was a much more efficient way to do it than the way I would have typically done it, which is for each record stopped, got into my email, looked at LinkedIn, and filled in all those data pieces. What was most important today was making sure that they were in the right bucket. And, some buckets, it's really not important to dig into all that detail. I don't care. I'm not interested in working with that person. It's irrelevant for something that I know that someone else doesn't know. So, I touched, I kind of got sidetracked because that's what delayed me coming into this, but I touched the records, but I did not go on into another chat. And that's new for me.
There's 2 things that really stick out for me based on what you just said. Number 1, it goes back to point number 2 on empowering and leading your team, of like delegating and like you focusing on what you could do best. But number 2 is you stayed in one task, right? And like, we've spoken about this so much. The more that you can do one task over and over again, instead of task switching, the more efficient, the more productive, the faster we get things done. And every time that you go out to dig out that data, then you're going back and finding it. Even if you could do it, and like you could, it's not that like you can't, but for your brain, it takes more mental energy and more to go and switch between those things, and it takes more time. So that is most definitely a really good way of grouping. You're grouping on a general level on like, okay, we're actually like grouping the people, but you're also grouping in how you're doing the work by staying focused on your task.
The other thing that I noticed myself doing is I give myself permission to not do any of the outreach today. I'm just organizing the people and the record. I'll give my assistant time to get in there and fill in the details I've tagged her on. But the actual outreach conversations, I'm just doing the prep for them so I can batch them as well. So I made the decision today that I think I do consistently overestimate how much I can get done. And I just realized, you know what, today's not the day to actually do the outreach. Today's the day to prepare for the outreach. And another area that I've experienced this is in doing videos, writing all the scripts for the videos and kind of staying in that content creation mode, and then actually recording the videos on days that I already have. Like I've already got to put lipstick on. I've already got to dress up. I'm already in that lane, in that mode. So on a day that I'm teaching and I'm energized by the room, I can hop on and record another call if I've already prepped the content and the talking points for the call. So that was another area that I was like, okay, it's not sit down, write the script, record the call, end it, publish it. It's, and you taught me this, like it's really thinking through content and then creation. And then again, this team member is really excellent at taking it from that creation point to the distribution point. And that was a sticking point for me always. I'd like expend all this energy in creation and then like just didn't have the motivation to do the nitpicky, like I'm going to schedule it. I'm going to make sure the formatting works, because I knew my time would be valuable somewhere else. So then things would sit. Well, now that I've got a team member in that seat, that team member takes this quality content, packages it, schedules it, does the other pieces for me, where I get to just kind of stay in that front of the room, you know, delivery mode.
Love that way of working, of categorizing, of using your energy right, not just to save time, but like the energy. That's like such a big one. You have to give like a one piece of advice for someone who's listening to this and wants to get better at being more effective and efficient in the way that they're working. What would you tell them?
Prioritize, because that fractured attention has such a cost. It has a cost to your self-esteem, like your perception of yourself, your perception of your abilities. And you'd be better off to cut the lower priority tasks and better produce the higher priority tasks, or even just do them in order so that the important things get done first. And so, especially as an ADHDer, that overwhelm, there's such a cost to that. Prioritizing and choosing intentionally to do less.
Amazing. Let's move on to number 4, which I feel is very similar, but improving categorizations and organizing routine tasks and prioritizing projects. So I feel the other one is more about being productive and being efficient in the actual work. And this one is more general, my routines and my projects on a bigger picture.
Yeah. So one of the biggest struggles that I had last year when I was working with you is I teach day workshops and 8-week workshops. And I was finding myself redoing the curriculum every time. And I couldn't intellectually figure out why I was redoing everything. There's going to be tweaks for sure every time, but what I have figured out is what I would do is take the last facilitation guide, duplicate it and rename it, and then move things around and all of that. So I moved, and it took a lot of cleanup, but I moved to one template and just customizing the template instead of rebuilding the template every time. And then I realized that I wanted to maintain a content library. So categorizations, layers in the airport. I realized I wanted to organize the content I teach from in multiple platforms, multiple different ways by content. And then the facilitation guide was kind of the roadmap of, how much time it takes, how much exercise, who the audience, like it was a very different thing. I was trying to put them both together. I was trying to store the content in the facilitation guide, and it belonged separate. So I finally made that switch in the last 6 or 7 weeks. So I'm just now seeing the reward of it. And a couple things now are possible when I see new content that I want to talk about, that I want to incorporate. All I have to do is go to my content library, find that topic, add to it. Whereas before I'd be like, did I teach it in this one, or should it go in this guide, or should it go in this guide? Like I would run out of bandwidth before I even started. And so I can see already like how much better this is allowing me to capture inspiration and new content, because I'm not combining the content with the facilitation methodology roadmap. That was huge.
I love that. The way you categorize that first, like on a bigger picture of like of splitting it, and then in your split, like how you split your information so that way you can grab the information easier. I know you've recently done quite a few workshops. How was it pulling out the information now and dealing with it in this new way?
I did 2 back-to-back workshops using the methodology that I was licensed to use last year. And while I was in it, I was making those shifts and saying, okay, this goes in the content library, this goes in the content library. And actually, when I said I did templates, I actually had 4, but the templates were designed based on the delivery methodology. This is a virtual 8-week intact team. So if it's an intact team, I know that some of the discussions are going to take longer. Some of the questions are going to look different. If it's virtual versus in person, I know that the polls are going to look different. The technology is going to look different. The instructions for the in-person, like the person I have on my team, look different. So I ended up with 4 templates in the facilitation guide. But what I was doing when I was doing those last 2 cohorts with the old curriculum is, oh, hey, here's another content I'm going to throw in the content library. Oh, here's another content I'm going to throw in the content library. And then just double checking across 4 templates instead of 16. So I was doing the work. I was doing the cleanup as I was delivering. As I introduced a new program that I'm starting in February, now I get to start from, okay, here's my facilitation guide, and it is going to really, really pay off because I get a little more freedom and creativity with this new program because it's mine. And I'm like, okay, now I know where to grab my stuff. I know where the supplies are. I know where the ingredients are. And as I read, as I talk to people, as people share stuff, it's going right in the cabinet. Like it's going right in the pantry where I can grab it later. And I just did not have that before. I did not have that because it was just, everything was all in one place.
That makes me so happy. Makes me so happy to hear it. But I can't wait to hear how it like really plays out and how much easier it is for you. Let's move on to your last goal. At the time when we started this program, there was a lot of turnover and you're like readjusting the employees in your business. And you've spoken about this quite a bit in the beginning, but just share with me during that actual stage of saying, okay, who's leaving, who's coming, how were you able to use your thinking skills to really help you with that process of the business? Because I know there's a lot of people listening to this who are in the process of hiring, and your input will be very helpful to them.
I don't know if I can answer it in terms of thinking skills,
Okay.
but I can answer it in terms of mindset shift.
Perfect.
And I'll just kind of reiterate the mindset of having to figure everyone's job out for them, teach them their job, onboard them their job, and then manage that. Like I have moved away from that into finding the people who can hold and manage. So what's interesting is that with the right team member, and I have one permanent team member right now who's phenomenal, that team member is the one that knows my system, knows the categorizations, and can say, it's just more important than this. Because my brain does really like to go for new things. We do know that. Like there's that, and that team member will call me out and say, what are you going to give up for that? And so it's really built in some accountability that I really, really missed being a solopreneur. I miss having the team that brainstorms with you and helps you prioritize. And that's actually a skill we can build into our team if we are clear. And so that team member started with me back in probably June. And I think she essentially said it took 6 months for her to realize how many different thoughts I had. And so we just keep streamlining to now she can see everything. She understands everything that's in the business. And I was real fragmented before where it's like, oh, well, I do this thing with this person over here and I do this thing with this way. And no, this person doesn't even know what this person is doing. And so it was just drowning me. So I don't know how that translates to thinking skills, but I do think it's a mindset shift of trying to own all the pieces to, who, not what, that whole concept of setting team members up for success, making sure they had access to what they need, answering their questions, and then letting them lead in their role.
I'll make that connection for you. So
Okay.
obviously there's mindset, and mindset is prerequisite to everything. So in order to use your thinking skills, you're using this mindset in how you are showing up and how you are communicating and how you're answering your questions and how you're not doing certain tasks, you are consciously using your thinking skills. Your brain needs to use thinking skills to decide that you're not doing this and you're giving it to someone else to do, or that you're doing project A instead of project B. All that requires you to use your thinking skills. And every time you say no to one thing and yes to something else, or compare something, or prioritize something, or set up a new system, or use your system, you are strengthening those thinking skills so that later on it will be something different. Because in 4 years' time, I don't know if you're still going to be using the exact same systems that you're using today, but the skills that you've developed in building your systems that you use today, you will have in 4 years' time. And it'll be a lot easier for you to build whatever system you need to build then.
I needed to learn the lesson that I learned this year around leading in my business, because I think one of the biggest frustrations coming into the cohort with you is I can see myself stepping in that same hole over and over and over and twisting my ankle over and over and over. Why can't I stop stepping in that hole? And so that mindset shift is like, oh, hey, I don't have to hold it all. It's that's actually not strategic. And when I give other people responsibility in the business to hold pieces and be strategic and have the data in order to make the decisions to be strategic, and it's incredible.
That makes me so happy. Thank you so much, Julie. Love not only getting to hear your journey, but actually getting to be a part of it. Is there any last word you wish to tell people?
I find the cohort really therapeutic as a business owner. As an ADHDer, I find being able to go back into this really pure learning environment where it's really simple. It's really comforting. And I'll just say on a personal level, depression's been a part of my journey for a long, long time. And these thinking skills are helping there too, where I'm catching the overwhelm that triggers the depression. I'm catching that, and I'm realizing it doesn't have to be that way. So, I know it's really kind of a sensitive subject to talk about, but I do truly see a connection between my ability to navigate dips and really to navigate overwhelm, helping my mental health.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because I think so many people are struggling, and like you said, it's a sensitive topic, and people are like, oh my gosh, is it going to affect my business if I talk about mental health? And they like to hide it, and especially when it's tied to money and success, and it's scary. So thank you for sharing that. I want to just take a moment to remind everybody exactly what you do and where they could find you, because I would love if people would get to work with you. Your work is so super powerful, and I'd love for them to be connected with you.
So I teach courage building. I teach people the skills and the mindsets needed to really act courageously in your business or in your nonprofit. I do a ton of work with mission-driven leaders. I was in nonprofit for a very long time, and they need these courage building skills as much as us as business owners do. So I do that through coaching, and I do it through workshops and group coaching. And, it's a combination, kind of like you, it's a combination of teaching people the skills they need to stay in that arena, to stay in whatever it is a beat longer, to stand their ground, to say what needs to be said. And then, just like your cohort, the results are transformational because people are reaping the rewards of that courage, of that skill set, of that ability to really lean into what's most important to them, to take action in areas that are most important to them.
I love that. And where could people connect with you?
So I've got a website. It's juliebollconsulting.com. And so find me on LinkedIn, find me on the website. Actually, one of the first things you can do is take a courageous leadership scorecard, and that's going to give you some data on the areas of vision, values, emotional agility. Are you able to label emotions that you have? So just like these cognitive thinking skills that we talk about, having emotional agility and having an understanding of your emotions is really, really critical for leadership. So you can take that scorecard and get some data and act on that data immediately.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for sharing your journey, like really taking us through it. Love getting to see it. I love that everyone else get to see it, and we'll chat soon.
Well, that's the 3 parts of our episode 500. Thank you so much, Julie, for coming on here and for being super vulnerable, really sharing with us some of the behind the scenes, really sharing with us how it shows up in your life, in your business, the emotional aspects to it, and just letting us be a part of your journey. Now, I'll give you a little bit more behind the scenes. Julie actually joined another advanced cohort. That's what I love about Julie. She never stops growing, and there's always room for more growth. And she's always literally taking her brain to the next level. And you see the direct results in her business. It is awesome. I literally have the best clients. Can I just say that? If you want your own set of transformation and you're like, okay, I need this to happen for me so I can run my business more efficiently, more effectively, I can grow my business, make more money, feel that inner peace, then reach out to me. Head over to lifepeaksuniversity.com/OYB. O, optimize, Y, your B, your brain. And see if you've fit the requirements and fill out an application. If you are someone who I think will be a good fit, we'll reach out to you. And I'd love to see you in another cohort. And that's it for episode 500. Crazy. I'm excited to see what the next 500 episodes are going to be about, what topics we're going to cover, what formats are going to be introduced, what sort of people we're going to have on. If you have any sort of requests, feel free to reach out to me. Socials, Esty Rappaport or Life Peaks University, and I will do my best to incorporate them. Have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you on the next episode.
That's all for this episode of the Business Brain Podcast. If you enjoyed it, send it to a friend who secretly wants stronger thinking skills too, so together you can grow your businesses with peak brain performance.